Our next speaker works on the CLI at NPM, and is here to talk about some of the cool new features in NPM 5 and some things that we can look forward to in the future. I run NPM on the CLI several times a day, and I'm constantly finding out things that I didn't know prior. So I'm super pumped to get the scoop. Everybody put your hands together for Cat Marchán.
All right, can everyone hear me okay? Oh, all right, cool, that sounds awesome. Quick question before I start. I started passing around a bag of stickers. Where is that bag now? All right, it's making its way through. All right, so hi, my name's Kat. I am one of the two core devs on the NPM CLI, and I'm here to talk about all the shiny new things in the latest version of NPM, NPM 5. I'm also going to talk about some of the stuff we're working on now and what you can look forward to in the future. So hi, let's get the show on the road. So here's the general idea. It's fast, it's magical, it does cool things, it's easier to contribute to, and there's a lot more in store. I know a lot of folks have been really excited about performance improvements, so I'm just going to get straight to that first. Here's some benchmarks. I ran these numbers last night using the latest NPM releases for both NPM 4 and NPM 5. These tests were done on the repo for NPM's website. I think this is a pretty representative test because it hits a lot of the common cases that modern web apps seem to hit, like Grunt and Babel, a bunch of dev dependencies, a bunch of like front-end dependencies that it installs. It also has some Git dependencies, which are more common to have in web apps, like when you're trying to use a fork of a project, or are you using GitHub as your private package provider. And finally, it has some private packages through a private NPM registry. They tend to run slightly slower because they have to go through an authentication step. So this covers a lot. An order of magnitude is seriously nothing to scoff at. Like, literally everyone was surprised, especially the CLI team. Like, we had no idea. We didn't think this sort of speed boost was possible with the current code base. We would have done it like a lot sooner if we'd realized how much we could do. Like, let's be clear here. This is 647% difference in performance from a single Semver major release. It's unreal. I've benchmarked other projects where the difference will be anywhere from 5x to 10x, and that's with other people's web app setups. A lot of our users were kind enough to just send us their package.json with all the private stuff stripped out, so I could just test that their actual real-world thing was working with the new version. By the way, the next slide is an animated GIF, so if you're sensitive to motion, keep that in mind. So here's a side-by-side. I'm just going to drive the point home with this. We can talk numbers all we want, but ultimately, this is about your time and your experiences as a developer. This is an install on the NPM website codebase, the one that I benchmarked before. Left is NPM 5, right is NPM 4. And we can see in the time that it took me to go through this slide, NPM 5 is about to finish. Yeah, there we go. It's done. Anyway, I'm going to let NPM 4 run. Because this is what people's experience actually has been like for a long time. Also, like, if I go over time, I can just blame NPM for taking too long, right? It's working on it. You know, trying to make sure that anyone who's still on break has time to come back. If any of y'all need a bathroom break, you're a little too late now, but could have gone. Yeah, I think Guillermo's around here, isn't he? It's still not done. from Canada. OK, so that's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Whereas NPM 5, I could just read the one slide. So let's move on. Also, like, I totally warned people about this yesterday. You can put your tents away now. TLDR, NPM 5 is really, really fast. This tweet by Isaac pretty much tells it like it is. Think about all the people that have been running NPM 3 and NPM 4 for a couple of years now. Think about the folks still running it. Just imagine how much time this is going to save the 8.5 million active NPM users we estimate we have. So, you know, it kind of makes a difference. But yeah, that's cool. But there's a reason, right? Like, did we break it? Because that's the first thing that I think about whenever something goes way too fast. The secret sauce that got NPM 5 to where it is a mixture of 3 new open source projects, a continued reevaluation of our architecture, and a fancy rebranding of the feature formerly but still kind of currently known as shrink wrap. Kakash, Make Fetch Happen, and Pacoche, that's how you pronounce that word, are 3 standalone external libraries that together amounted to a complete rewrite of NPM's entire caching and downloading subsystem. They're very fast. They're individually pretty well tested, and most importantly, they can be used separately from NPM to do non-trivial tasks. Kakash is already being used for non-NPM purposes by a few folks. For example, the bundler folks have started porting it to Ruby as part of their next generation global cache, which is going to be really awesome for all those, all those who use Rails or whatever those Ruby people use. Make Fetch Happen is literally the fetch API, augmented with a cache that's compliant with the HTTP caching standard. That means you can expect it to play nicely with server-side caching settings if you have your own registry, instead of doing its own bespoke thing, which is what we used to do. This is a very important part of NPM's new offline mode as well. And Pacoche is the highest level API of these. It does exactly 2 things. It gives you a package manifest, which is essentially the contents of a package JSON plus a few bits of extra data. Sorry. It gives you a manifest from a specifier. So a specifier is the name plus version thing that you type when you do like npm install package, whatever. That's a specifier. It just takes that and gives you a manifest. You can also give it that specifier and a target directory, and it will download that version of the package and extract it to a directory. So it does all this heavy lifting that you would usually have to use NPM for. It means you can write a package manager that handles all different types of packages that NPM handles, but you can do your own installation logic, your own script logic, your own UI, and you'll still benefit from this shared code. If you want to contribute to NPM, these packages are probably one of the best ways to do so right now. So please check them out. We'd love your help. So then the rest of the performance boost was some architecture work to streamline the way NPM thinks about node modules. And related to that, a new file called packagelog.json, which allows us to take advantage of all this for both reproducible builds and an absurd performance boost. I'll talk about these last 2 in a minute, but first I want to talk about how those 3 packages fit into our plans. This splitting off of major functionality into smaller packages is part of a larger project the team's working on, making NPM itself as modular as possible. We'll still have one main NPM client, but we want that client to be no more than a very thin glue layer that puts together all these lower-level libraries like Pacoche. If things work out OK, the ultimate ideal, the platonic ideal for all this, is for you to be able to cook up your own package manager tool that serves your own needs with only a weekend's worth of work and still benefit from all the institutional knowledge that the CLI team and others have put into these libraries. More package managers is a good thing, I promise. The reality is that people have different needs, and trying to get a single tool to fulfill all those needs leaves you with a tool that is jack of all trades but a master of none. I genuinely hope this work we're doing helps keep the ecosystem stimulated, so we keep reminding ourselves that we can keep doing better. We've been working closely with other package managers, maintainers to figure things out, get new ideas, and generally coordinate our efforts so we can all best serve our individual communities. I'll talk more about how we're doing that later. OK. So let's take a moment to talk for a bit about package manager theory, or whatever you want to call it. I want to draw a distinction here between two types of approaches to package management. The difference between a mutation-based workflow and a synchronization-based workflow. This way to think about it is something that NPM has generally been moving towards, especially since NPM 3, or even a little bit of in NPM 2. But what really helped the idea gel and made it easier to target was this wonderful article by Sam Boyer, one of the designers for Go's new package manager called Dep. It's a long read, but it's a fantastic overview of package management as a problem, the different solutions that have been tried, their individual limitations, and so on and so forth. That's mostly just good info to have if you want to understand this sort of stuff better. But the real juicy thing about this article was when he started talking about what the future of package management might look like. In NPM terms, the team talks about the differences he lays out as mutation versus synchronization. The first mutation is what we see older versions of NPM doing, particularly before NPM 3. What I mean by this is the mental model for NPM usage was that you have this node module tree in your file system. It is actually a tree with directories in it that you're supposed to interact with. And all you want is a tool to make it easier to manipulate the contents in particular ways. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty, but there's a lot of little tidbits about how NPM works where you can still spot this, the way linking works, the fact that it didn't save by default, the troubles caused when NPM 3 introduced flattening. This way of doing things worked really well for NPM in the past, which is why it was great back then. Back then, projects were small, like under 500 or so packages easily for an entire installation. And most developers who used NPM were Node.js library authors. So you can see NPM as a tool optimized for library authors. It meant that we could adapt to changes to how Node.js was working because Node.js was also very new when NPM came out. But everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. And by Fire Nation, I mean y'all with literally thousands of packages in your project, setting your machines literally, figuratively on fire. Web developers are by far our biggest demographic now, and we need to think differently about what a package management tool looks like at that scale. This is where sync comes in. Where mutation was procedural, syncing is declarative. It's functional. It sees your package JSON as input to a black box program and maps it to a final node modules. And then it shapes that however it wants. It also transforms it along the way. It works much like a functional pipeline in this sense. The core idea behind this is a graph by Sam. So what he described was separating a package manager into stages, discrete stages, starting with your source code and you, the user, and ending up with a usable node modules directory with all information flowing exclusively in one direction, which might sound a little familiar to y'all React folks. That means manual changes to later stages will be thrown away entirely if they don't match earlier stages. So, if you start manipulating the DOM manually, it's not great in React. So here in this chart, we have the four main ones, as well as the user. The P refers to the package, or your source code. You can see the user on the side. M stands for manifest, which in our case is package.json. L is a lock file, which is package.lock.json, and D is dependencies, which is the node modules directory, like our final goal. So what we're seeing here is that node modules is installed based on the lock file alone, the contents of the lock file alone. The lock file is built based on the manifest alone. And the manifest is built by a combination of user inputs or by other tools that edit the package JSON for you based on your source code. These steps don't skip rank. You need to reach one step before you can do the next one, at least conceptually. So why make this change? Why not just let you do whatever you want to your lock file or to your node modules without having to worry about earlier stages, clobbering your changes? Smoother learning curve for users. It simplifies the tool immensely. The UX when you don't have to worry about where 2,000 packages are, when you're not actually supposed to look in node modules. I know it's scary. Don't do it. It's harder to paint yourself into a corner for the same reason because there's so much stuff in there. There's so many relationships that aren't easy to map for a human. It means that NPM will be able to do higher level optimizations. So we can, I don't know what optimizations right now beyond the ones that we've done so far, but like we can look at the process at a higher level and say, this block we're going to optimize this way. And we understand exactly what we're going to get from the previous one, so we can focus on this little black box and make that really, really fast. It's easier to specify the behavior of each step, meaning third-party tools will be able to write things that inject themselves into various stages. If you do need those kinds of escape hatches, it's going to be easier to do them. And then finally, NPM can do more heavy lifting for you. This kind of goes back to UX, where you've got NPM doing more things without you needing to do configuration. It's just going to do the right thing for you. So the Eli 25, because no one's 5 here, I think. If I were going to, this is explain it like I'm 25. If I were going to explain this without talking so much, I'd say that sync is to mutation for node modules, what React is to jQuery for the DOM. They both have their trade-offs, have different scaling profiles. By intentionally restricting what's possible, you can optimize for the most important parts that need to work and get a more streamlined, easier to learn tool. The downside is you distance your users further away from what they're actually doing, and you limit what they'll be able to do easily as a result of that. So if they want to do some backflips, that's going to be a lot harder now. You can have escape hatches, but they're going to be very, very ugly, and they're going to be very, very discouraged. So yeah, NPM is betting on the sync model being the direction it needs to move in, and NPM 5 was a significant step in that direction. It's a bit of a bumpy ride at first while we transform legacy system and figure things out, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to end up with something like really fantastic here. Not that it already isn't fantastic. So we've gone over the new ideas of NPM. Let's go over more concrete stuff. Features. There's a lot of them, but I'll go over the main ones. First is package log.json. This is our log file. And part of our shiny new sync pipeline that I just talked about. It's a new log file format. For those of you unfamiliar with the concept of log files, they're an extra file that a package manager will write, which represents the exact install tree that was generated based on the dependencies in a package JSON at that point in time. I'm not going to go into details right now, and Ashley actually has some fantastic documentation on this. What you need to know is that NPM will start writing this file whenever you install now, and you should commit it. It'll make it so that your teammates, CI, and anyone else who clones your project gets the exact same install for development off the same commit. This can save you a bunch of headaches that would otherwise happen from one coworker accidentally pulling in a broken transitive dependency, and you end up with this works on my machine situation. With log files, you can at least be sure that you have the same node modules if you run into some weird bugs. So that's like the last place you'll look with something like this. The name's pretty new, but it turns out we had most of this in the work, most of the work done already in the form of something called npm shrinkwrap.json, which I don't think, how many people know about shrink wrap? Oh, that's a good chunk. OK. We knew shrink wrap needed an overhaul. We've been talking about it for a long time. Doing this overhaul was one of the main goals when we started planning NPM 5 almost a year and a half ago. We wanted to get shrink wrap right. We were planning on keeping the name at first, but certain things happened that made it very, very clear that people have no clue whatsoever what shrink wrap means. But log file kind of magically clicks with them. And honestly, it's better to just use a term that people actually grok. So now we have a package lock. Cheers, Yarn. I was about to say a tough crowd. Shit. Anyway, it's not just changes in UX. We added some nice new features to it, such as SHA-512 support for all package tarbles referenced, so you know you're getting the exact same data byte by byte now without having to worry about SHA-1 conflicts. It's a lot easier to switch registries now, too. A log file generated on one registry can be pointed at any other registry, and it will fetch tarbles from that registry instead, automatically. It'll even make sure that the file contents match the checksum. Finally, we've thoroughly documented the package lock format and put enough information into it, both the logical relationships and the physical relationship, such that we believe any existing log file formats can be generated from its data. This is a step towards interoperability, And we very much intend on package-lock.json becoming a standard that can be consumed by any other NPM-compatible package manager, even if they have their own format they generate for their own users. I already have a little tool to convert package-lock.json to PNPM's lock file format, and that helped immensely in figuring out what we actually needed to save. So cheers to the PNPM maintainers for being like in touch with us so much. And again, you should always commit it. Like literally, libraries, CLI tools, web apps, all of it. Please note that the file is meant to be consumed by computers, not humans. That said, we put effort into making it readable enough that you can understand individual patches to it that come with like pull requests. I love this image so much. This is so much better than the node modules jokes. So next up is saving by default. By popular request, you can now stop forgetting to add --save to installs. I like this one a lot, and we were talking about doing this for a long time. There were some things in NPM that just wouldn't let us just switch it over, but we worked it out, and here you go, that's the result. It'll save both package.json and package-lock.json or an NPM shrink wrap if that's what you have instead. So you just kind of use NPM, and it arranges your package.json. This is, again, part of the story of syncing. Another popular request, this mode means that you no longer have to do anything special to get your install to work when you don't have internet. It'll just happen, and it'll happen fast. NPM 5 adds a few options for controlling how caching works, but cache min and cache max, if you're familiar with those, we deprecated them. Don't need them anymore. Seriously, you don't even need any flags whatsoever. There's a --offline option now to force offline, even when you have network access or when your network is way too slow and it's taking a while to respond to, oh, I don't have internet right now. But in general, NPM will do the right thing for you when you open your laptop on a plane and run npm install now, always. Like, as long as your cache is warm, NPM will just work. The next slide is an animated GIF. So again, if you're sensitive to movement. So here it is in action. So it's kind of cool when you see it actually working. In this slide, I killed my Wi-Fi. There's no internet access whatsoever. There we go. That's a lot of it. So there's a few other cool things available already. There's semver support for Git. So if you have a Git dependency, you can replace the SHA at the end with the syntax that's semver : and then a semver specifier, and it'll use semver to install that. It'll look at branches and tags for you. SHA-5 support in downloads and tarball, like, this is a step towards security. You know, I believe it was called Shattered. Like, the attack on SHA-1 was released, and it's actually very hard to work around. They even have the same file size. So part of the work of doing SHA-512 was also laying the groundwork for moving to future formats. So as soon as SHA-3 is available in Node.js, we'll be able to flip a switch, and NPM will start publishing and installing with SHA-3. Automatic cache verification and corruption recovery. I had a GIF of this, but I figured like it's less important for a crowd like this. But the point is, if you have a cache and it gets corrupted somehow, or some tarball is cut up or something, then NPM will throw that tarball away, re-download it automatically, tell you that something was corrupted, and then fixed it, and just keep going. Like, it's going to reduce some classes of integrity errors. But wait, there's more. There's one more, which is NPX. I'm really, really, really excited about NPX right now, too. It's a brand new tool that we started bundling with NPM recently, 5.2. It's intended to make it a lot easier for you to run executable NPM packages in a variety of common situations. It's a pretty general tool with a number of bells and whistles, and so many possibilities. Like, people are playing with it and trying to figure out what they can do now that they couldn't before. Again, another GIF warning with a terminal. So look, you can use it to, for example, create a Chew app without having done any previous installs. I don't have anything installed globally except NPX here, and it just kind of does it. Chew just released their new version, I think version 6, and it's a really fun little framework if you ever want to play with something new. And that's it. You have a Chew app now. chew is not installed, the create chew thing is not installed globally. Like, I could seriously go on for a long time about all the things NPX can do. Using local project binaries from the command line, so you don't have to like use run scripts all the time. Single run temporary binary tool installs. So if you have something that you want to run a one-off execution for, you don't need to do npm-i-g. You can just do npx and it'll do the right thing. You can switch node versions using this node package that's on the npm registry. Or you can even like download a gist a very, very trusted friend or loved one gave you. If you want to see more stuff you can do, check out the awesome npx repo linked here. That's js-n/awesomenpx. And maybe listen to the toolsday.io podcast that came out literally yesterday, where we go a bit more in-depth with this tool. Again, it comes with NPM now, so you can start relying on it being there for users with newer NPM 5 versions. Or you can install the standalone version with npm install-g npx, which does not require npm itself to be installed anywhere. It just does the thing. As I said, npm 5 isn't the end of the story. We got several more features and optimizations coming right after release. So 2FA support and other security stuff, which I'm not going to talk about yet. You can expect 2FA support to come fairly soon. I don't know the status right now, but it's coming. We're overhauling the linking workflow such that ideally you'll be able to like pull in a monorepo, do an npm setup links command of some sort, and it'll just link everything. So you don't even have to like do weird things. You just set up your repo, even if you have like a monorepo with all the packages in subdirectories. It's going to go even more faster than ever. We're going to be working with Yarn folks to add Workspaces. If you haven't heard of Workspaces, it's a really cool feature that Yarn added that makes monorepos really nice to use. You should totally check it out. We're going to be working on at least compatibility with it. We're going to start auto-installing deps with a command, with a discrete command. We're going to read through your require and import statements in your JavaScript project, and we're going to pull in any dependencies that you're missing, and we're going to remove any dependencies that you're not using anymore. And we're just going to do that automatically for you. And we're going to be releasing more utilities as external tools. Like I said, having one tool do everything is meh. But we can have a bunch of little tools that do all these kind of cool things. CIPM is one of them. No, it does not install a CI for you. It is a tiny package manager. It uses an existing package like.json, so you used NPM previously, to do a very, very, very fast installation when there's no node module. So basically a case where you have CI, where you don't have a node module at all, and you need to run an install before running your tests. It's missing a lot of NPM's features on purpose, but it means that it's 2 to 3 times faster and very small and lightweight. That's 2 to 3 times faster than current NPM 5. NPA is another thing in the pipeline, an asset manager that installs into a separate assets directory and does flat installs and has a couple other bells and whistles meant to improve how you install your front-end libraries. You'd basically use this in a lot of the same situations that you would Bower, except it's got the same semver and registry awareness as NPM, meaning you can pre-build things on publish instead of having to commit the builds to your Git repo. And it always installs flat trees because that tends to be better for front-end folks because you tend to have a lot of global state. It'll even use package.json, so you don't need a different manifest. So we've gone over the new ideas that influence NPM 5, the new features that came with that. I've given you a bit of a glimpse into one of the possible multiverse futures. It's going to be an exciting couple of years with our community, like now that our community and tools are shifting and we're ramping up a lot of work. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing all the new things that are made possible by these things and all the work that's happening elsewhere in the community. I am and always have been a toolsmith at heart, and that means that there's no better sign of success than having enabled other people to do bigger, more amazing things than they ever could. Please go update your NPM and give it a whirl. I hope it goes well. And if you're interested in these sort of tools and more bleeding edge updates, check out package.community. That's a URL. A bunch of us package manager maintainers for all sorts of different ecosystems have been putting our heads together lately and comparing notes. I think it's going to spark a lot of cool things in the future. We've got like the bundler folks, we've got some Yarn folks, we've got the NPM folks, we've got Go package manager and all that stuff. So thank you very much.